Welcome to the Vancouver UFO Meetup Group. This is March 29th, 2021. Our guest today is Alfred Lambremont Webre. He's 79. He's been around for a long time. I've known him since he gave a talk to our Vancouver UFO Meetup Group about 10 years ago, and we had around 70 or 80 people. I think it's the largest group we ever had. And his talk today is called How Earth Benefits from a Representative on the Regional Galactic Governance Council. And this is one of his books he published about 20 years ago, Exopolitics, which kind of started that genre. And he signed it here to a Vancouver UFO Meetup Group in Light, Alfred, many years ago. So welcome, Alfred. It's good to have you here.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And I'm really happy to be here. It's amazing to be able to share this here in Vancouver, and it's really awesome to be with you and to be talking with
dozen of us here right now, yeah,
with like-minded souls. So I have a PowerPoint, and it's about 39 slides, and then afterward we could have a Q&A. Is that?
Yeah, we'll have Q&A afterwards. Yeah, I can play slides as much as you want, and we'll carry on.
Okay, good. Okay, so the title of this presentation is Exopolitics 101, How Earth Benefits from a Representative on the Regional Galactic Governance Council. And that's by me. I'm here wearing my hat as Judge Alfred Lambremont Webre of the Natural and Common Law Tribunal for Public Health and Justice. And you can find our website at peaceandspace.org. And we're a natural and common law tribunal. And my three principal books, 4 books actually, are one in exopolitics, Exopolitics, Politics, Government, and Law in the Universe. That's the book that is credited with founding the science of exopolitics, which was accepted as a new word in the English language in 2005. And it's the science of relations among intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. And then I've written 3 books on the Omniverse. The Omniverse is the third cosmological body after the universe and the multiverse through which humanity understands the cosmos. And I have 3 books there, The Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse in 2014, the Omniverse in 2016, and the newest book, The Emergence of the Omniverse, which you can get at universebooks.com or on Amazon. And the background is how Earth benefits from a representative on the Regional Galactic Governance Council. Well, there's a bit of background here, and that is that right now, today, on what's today, March 28th, right? March 28th, 2021, we have an official parliamentary petition. It was actually qualified, and we had the technical number of qualifications. It's called e-petition, before my Member of Parliament, Jody Wilson-Raybould, who was Canada's first Indigenous First Nations Attorney General, to directing the government of Canada to recognize the Regional Galactic Governance Council. And that's a council that consists of the local upper dimensional advanced human civilizations like the Sirians, the Alpha Centaurians, the Pleiadians, and others that for the last 15 million years or so, we have from the exopolitical record, have overseen matters here on Earth. And the proposition that we've been putting forward in exopolitics is that we here on planet Earth, sure, we're overseen by the Regional Galactic Governance Council, but we don't have a representative from our solar system on the Regional Galactic Governance Council because exopolitically, we're in a very disturbed solar system. It's a solar system that is just now getting over the effects of solar system nuclear war. We had a solar system nuclear war about 700,000 years ago that pulverized a very large Earth-like planet that is now the asteroid belt called Tiamat, and that simultaneously turned another Earth-like planet, Mars, into a pumpkin-shaped obloid planet with very little atmosphere and a surface devoid of vegetation with just reptilians running around on it. And part of our work in exopolitics has been to interview many Earth-Mars visitors. So we say that it's time now for Earth to have a representative on the Regional Galactic Governance Council. We went to have a petition started with I'm a dual United States Canadian citizen. So I went first to the White House website, which for several decades has had a White House petition there. And the Biden administration, with no public notice, has taken down the ability of United States citizens to petition their government. So that's no longer there. So I just turned around about a week ago and went straight to the Canadian Parliament, and they have an electronic petition where Canadian citizens can petition the House of the Canadian Parliament on public issues. So I got that there, and there's a process you go through. I got initial supporters. It's now gone to the desk of Jody Wilson-Raybould, member of Parliament. She's looking at it. She has the authority to send it to the Parliament. And once she does, then it's put out publicly and it's debated. It can be sent to the floor for debate and approval, whereby the government of Canada would recognize the Regional Galactic Governance Council. And we're doing that as a matter of law. And that's how you get recognition of the Regional Galactic Governance Council. The Earth has to ask for it. And the United Nations doesn't have a petition process. We looked that up. Canada does, and the United States government, isn't that something? They've had it under Republican and Democratic administrations, and the Biden government, supposedly this liberal government, took it out. So that's what's at stake here. This is an historic broadcast. There's something at stake here exopolitically. Okay, so let's move on. What I'm going to be presenting here in these 39 slides is based on my studies and books. First of all, you can find the books at universebooks.com or at Amazon, and the book Exopolitics founded the science of relations of intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. In other words, the science of exopolitics. Now, this is something that took me for a loop when I first published it in the year 2000. The secret time travel program of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, and the Central Intelligence Agency, they have a quantum access, secret quantum access time travel program. And they time traveled my book, Exopolitics, which you can see on the screen. I'm holding up a copy here, back from 2005 when it was published as a soft cover. It was first put on the internet as a free ebook in the year 2000, but they time traveled it back from 2005 back to 1971, when a whistleblower when a chrononaut, a US chrononaut, Andrew D. Bishago, first saw it. He was a childhood participant, and he was there, and he was with his father and another person, and they brought out a satchel, which is how they bring, they have these special satchels where they put materials that are brought from the future back to the past. And they brought out this satchel, they opened it up, and out popped Exopolitics by Alfred Lambremont Webre. This was 1971. It wasn't going to be even conceived of until 1999. I wrote the book in 1999 here in Vancouver, Canada, in Kitsilano, across from the Kitsilano schoolhouse, just about a block from Kitsilano Beach, and put it on the internet in the year 2000. That's how Exopolitics was born. And there he was seeing it in 1971. And the DARPA secret CIA time travel unit, about 50 of them, in 1971, I was general counsel of the New York City Environmental Protection Administration. And part of my duties had to do with giving public speeches on protection of the environment. And, it was mainly to students and housewives. So one day, this man showed up in a suit and a tie and said, they invited me to make a talk to this organization. I said, sure. And when he showed up, he was very formal and suit and a tie, just like Brian is today, and we drove out for about 2 hours, almost past New Jersey, down almost to Washington, D.C., well, Delaware, around in there. And we came to a nondescript building on the second floor. There were about 50 men's in suits and ties and shirts and ties, and I knew they were not environmentalists, but they were government agents, government employees, and they turned out to be employees of DARPA and the CIA secret time travel program, who in 1979 had a copy of a book that I would write in 1999, published in the year 2000, and published in the year 2005, and it would found the science of exopolitics. And that's what I call time travel surveillance. They wanted to see what I looked like in 1971, because they knew that that would be published in the year 2005. And that's when I developed the concept of the chronography, the secret time travel government. Because it turns out, and this comes out of multiple interviews with, it turns out that Andrew Bishago went public in the early 2000s, and he went public that DARPA CIA pre-identified all of the US presidents, and in 1971, and they briefed them on their future president, and they groomed them to be president. So that's the chronography, and they told them what's going to happen in their presidency, so that even if they govern from the right or the left, that's why the policy is so secure. So they use secret time travel technology to be constantly scanning the environment, and everything is predetermined. All the elections are predetermined. And guess what? Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who, by the way, was the personal attorney to Legal Access Worldwide, a company that I had here in Canada in the 1980s in partnership with Claude Giroux, International SOS Assistance. And when Pierre Elliott Trudeau was prime minister, he went down and was invited to for a White House visit with then President Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was the CEO of the secret time travel project prior to Watergate. And Donald Rumsfeld was the defense attaché that was in charge of it at the Department of Defense. And guess who he took down there? He took down a toddler named Justin Trudeau, who was just a toddler. And at the state dinner, Richard Nixon, who was completely informed of all the pre-identification, what they did is the CIA took the time travel and they went down all the timelines and they pre-identified who's going to be world leaders. And in the toast, he said, here's to baby toddler Justin Trudeau, a future Prime Minister of Canada. And so in normal thinking, you would think that, oh, he's just being polite, right? But no, he was revealing interstate secrets. So over the years, Justin Trudeau was probably groomed and briefed by the CIA that he's the future Prime Minister of Canada and part of the chronography, secret time travel government. So here in Canada, where we live, and I'm divulging this secret now at the Vancouver UFO meetup, we have a prime minister who's a product of the chronography, the CIA DARPA secret time travel project. And that's why he's prime minister. And that's why he seems to be a jack-in-the-box, okay? That's the background. That's the background. So that's in Exopolitics. And then you get to my 3 books on the Omniverse. One of the 3 is there. That's the 3. That's the one that's published by Inner Traditions. The other 2 books are published by Universe Books. And the trilogy of the Omniverse books documents the 2014 discovery of the 3rd major cosmological body through which humanity understands the cosmos, after the universe, which was discovered 3500 BC by the Sumerians, and the multiverse, which was discovered in 1895 by the American scientist William James. In 2014, there were 3 books simultaneously, which were published, we'll go into it, discovering the Omniverse, and one of these happened to be mine. So, co-discoverer of the Omniverse. And Journey, my 3rd book, there documents the ET abductions, we'll be talking about it, of President Jimmy Carter, Alfred Lambremont Webre, and sets out, and Andrew D. Bashago, the chrononaut, who went public, who the ETs abducted as well. So he was a physical witness. He is an attorney, and he witnessed this aboard the ships. So it's not just me saying, oh, I was abducted, but the ET took Andy up and they showed me on the ships, so there would be a witness. So it's not just me claiming that I was up there. So Exopolitics 101, we'll be covering these subjects: Exopolitics and a Positive Future, my introduction to the Regional Galactic Governance Council, what is the Regional Galactic Governance Council, Exopolitics, and the Regional Galactic Governance Council, support my initiative to be an Earth's representative to the Regional Galactic Governance Council, a living platform for the New Earth community, sign the petition or just support it. You can even write to Jody Wilson-Raybould, MP, and tell her, hey, this is a great idea. You know, this would change. I don't know whether she's going to say a yay or no. Let's put it at 50-50, 60-40. Who knows? This would change the course of history right now. Whether or not she's going to have the political courage to do it, it's anybody's guess, but it would change the course of history right now. And then finally, access and learn the vision at universebooks.com and omniversity.info, which is our new learning platform where we can start getting in there and creating a new institution called the Omniversity, so that this really gets traction inside the educational system, so they can't use universities to gatekeep this information outside of the system anymore. So, Exopolitics and a Positive Future, my introduction to the Regional Galactic Governance Council. And this is part one, the ethical ETs abduct Jimmy Carter, Alfred Weber, and Andy Basiago, 1969 to 75. A New Human, Abductions versus Adductions. Researchers R. Leo Sprinkle, PhD, quoting the late Roger Lear, MD, writes in an introduction to The New Human by Mary Rodwell that Mary Rodwell found that many ET abduction participants changed their viewpoint about these encounters. They were not abducted, i.e. taken away from Earth. They were adducted, i.e. taken toward the stars. From a multidisciplinary perspective, many participants viewed themselves as developing a multidimensional perspective about their encounters with ETs. These encounters were viewed as a physical, biological, psychological, spiritual events. And the effect was to develop a purpose or personal mission to assist Earth and humanity. That's what happened when people become adoptees. They're multi-level physical, biological, psychological, spiritual events that leave the adoptee with a purpose, a personal mission to assist Earth and humanity. And this is the book cover of the book, The New Human, by a colleague of mine, Mary Rodwell. If you haven't had Mary Rodwell as a guest at UFO Meetup, I certainly
yeah, I've had her as guest twice already.
Oh, great. That's really great.
She's very good.
Yeah.
Very positive too.
Yeah, wonderful. So who are the ETs behind the Carter, Weber, Basiago abductions? Okay, so the working hypothesis from eyewitness and documentary evidence, the ET behind the abductions of Jimmy Carter, Andy Basiago, and Alfred Weber in this 1969 to 75 period leading up to the 1977 Carter White House ET study may have been the short grays of the variety that Suzanne Hansen, head of UFO New Zealand experience, who were involved in introducing her to the soul of her future son aboard a gray craft when she was 8 years old, and then implanting her son's soul in the fetus of her womb when she was married and pregnant. And that image is from Suzanne Hansen, UFO Focus, New Zealand, on a gray craft prior to the merging procedure of the soul of her son into her womb. She was taken up into the craft when she was pregnant, and the gray ETs took the soul of her son, who was on the craft, and merged it into the fetus in her womb. I don't know whether you've had Suzanne Hansen, but it would be awesome as well.
Yeah.
Now, who are the ETs behind the Carter-Weber abductions? Working hypothesis. The ETs behind the abductions of Jimmy Carter, Andy Basiago, and Alfred Webre leading up may have been number 2. Galactic Governance Council meetings. The ETs could have been upper dimensional ET human members of the regional Galactic Governance Council, Pleiadians, Alpha Centaurians, Sirians, that created Homo sapiens sapiens and unshielded themselves over New York City on October 13, 2010, and were in communication with Stanley Fulham, Canadian lifelong NORAD officer, about cleaning up Earth's environment and appearing at the UN. And this photo is of the decloaking of the Regional Galactic Governance Council UFO in New York City on October 13, 2010. And that was the day before October 14th, which is when the UN Outer Space Office, a UN Outer Space Committee, was scheduled to meet at the UN headquarters in New York to discuss the protocols for greeting an extraterrestrial visit to Earth. So that's the second hypothesis. And again, working hypothesis. Who are the ETs behind the abductions of Jimmy Carter, Andy Basiago, and Alfred Webre in this period? They could be other ethical interdimensional ETs. The ETs could have been interdimensional ETs from multiple research case studies with abductees, as set out in the works of Mary Rodwell and Miguel Mendoza, who specializes in ET abductions. There's the book, Meet the Hybrids, The Lives and Missions of ET Ambassadors on Earth. We Are the Disclosures, parts 1 and 2, 700 years of research on ET human interaction and beings with beings, the how and why of ET contact. Again, Miguel Mendoza is a contactee and author and editor who lives in the UK. I'm not sure if you know him, but I'd be glad to do the introduction. His book, Meet the Hybrids, is excellent. It's chock full of ET hybrids who are here on Earth, and their mission is to make connections between the ETs and Earth. And so it could have been, you know, any variety of positive ETs that are here that are doing that. So we're keeping all of those hypotheses open. Ethical ETs abduct Jimmy Carter, Alfred Webre, and Andy Basiago, 1969 to 75. ET abductions. Think of Jimmy Carter as an early indigo, Alfred Webre as an early indigo, and Andy Basiago as an early crystal child. US President Jimmy Carter, Alfred Lambremont Webre, and US astronaut Andy Basiago were reportedly abducted by the same ethical extraterrestrials during the period 1969 to 75. Alfred's surmise is that Jimmy Carter's 1969 close encounter and missing time abduction, Alfred's 1973 ET encounter and missing time abduction, and Andy Basiago's 1975 ET abduction and witnessing of Alfred's 1973 ET abduction were about, number one, coordinating the 1976 election of President Jimmy Carter as an ET disclosure president. Number two, coordinating the 1977 Carter White House ET study, of which Alfred would become director. Number three, in the long run, the Carter, Basiago, and Webre ET abductions may have been about coordination of President Jimmy Carter's election as an ET disclosure president, and Andy Basiago's possible future election as an ET disclosure president, which had reportedly been pre-identified by DARPA CIA time travel, according to Project Pegasus time travel officers. Quantum and adduction entanglement. Alfred was director of President Carter's 1977 Carter White House ET study and has had a time travel quantum entanglement with Andy Basiago since 1971, when DARPA time traveled his book, Exopolitics, from 2005 back to 1971, and an ET adduction entanglement since 1975, when the ETs who abducted Alfred showed Andy the images of Alfred's 1973 ET abduction aboard their spaceship as an eyewitness. See documented context and backstory in Alfred's most recent book, Journey, at exopolitics.com. Jimmy Carter's close encounter of the fourth kind, ET abduction. Actual date, January 6th, Leary, Georgia Lions Club. So this photo is of Jimmy Carter's report, is Jimmy Carter's actual report of his close encounter of the fourth kind. Our analysis of this is that Jimmy Carter actually had a missing time experience during this close encounter. RNN, you have listened backwards to the speeches of people describing contact with spacecraft from other civilizations. What did you find out? And this is from a colleague of mine. You probably know him, Brian. Vancouver UFO researcher John Kelly.
Yeah, I've done video with him too.
Yeah. Quote, when President Jimmy Carter told reporters late last year that he didn't think flying saucers were the vehicles of space people visiting the Earth, I played his speech in reverse and heard the words saucer, went out naked, going out, they'll put it in him. Although it was part of his campaign process, this message made me wonder if the president had more personal reasons for sending Alfred Webre to SRI in the 1970s in order to release the government's secret research on extraterrestrials. From my reading of the message, it describes Carter as a potential abductee. And that's Exopolitics.com, Grant Cameron, John Kelly, Alfred Lambremont Webre. The 1973 Jimmy Carter UFO sighting report. And that's a picture of the White House and the executive office building where I used to go for meetings with the 1977 Carter White House UFO study. The 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study, that was conceived at a transition December 1976 private dinner that I was invited to on Capitol Hill with members of Carter's inner circle. What happened is that after the November 1976 election, US president election, I was living in New York, which President Carter won. President Carter sent an emissary to me and invited me to have dinner with him and meet him at the Hotel Carlyle in New York. I went and had dinner with him. the emissary said to me, President Carter is very interested in monitoring and coordinating with you on the House Select Committee on Assassinations, because at that time I was coordinating with and a consultant to U.S. Congressman Henry B. Gonzalez, chairman of the House Banking Committee, House of Representatives of the U.S., who had started the House Select Committee on Assassinations, investigating the assassination of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X. It's a little-known fact, but President John Kennedy and Jimmy Carter are half brothers. They share the same father.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've looked into that. Like Joseph Kennedy looks very much like Jimmy Carter, and the three Kennedy brothers look like their mother. Like Jimmy Carter looks more like Joseph Kennedy than the other three Kennedy sons. That's so true.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So so that emissary from Jimmy Carter invited me down to a private dinner on Capitol Hill in December of '76 during the transition, right before he's becoming president. And I remember the inner circle there said to me, they called Carter Peanut because he was a peanut farmer, and they said to me, "You gonna work with Peanut?" They asked me. And it was at that meeting that I got the idea or the concept for the Jimmy Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study, because all of the public studies up until that point of extraterrestrial contact had been made by the deep state. For example, after the 1973 UFO flap in Michigan, they set up Gerald Ford, the Republican congressman from Michigan, who was a member of the Warren Commission, who was a part of the cover-up of the Kennedy assassination, to lead that investigation. And they brought in the Secretary McNamara, and in his testimony in the Congress, he said there are no UFOs, it's all swamp gas. So they had the US Congress just had the deep state come in and continue the UFO cover-up. So I said, let's have the UFO, the transition. So I was doing in 3D what we had decided and it coordinated up on the ships during the Carter, Weber, Basiago abduction. See, the three of us, Jimmy Carter, Alfred Weber, and Andy Basiago, had been abducted by these ETs. And up there, we were coordinated, and that's where Carter got coordinated into becoming president. I got coordinated into becoming head of the Carter White House ET study, because I was an environmental lawyer, and until 1973, I didn't know a thing about ETs. All of a sudden, I was in ETs, and then 3 years later, all of a sudden, I was the head of the White House thing after I was abducted. The whole thing came from that abduction. And so then we met on the ground once Carter was elected. So isn't that amazing how the ETs work? First, they abduct you, and then they organize you to go back down on the ground, win the presidency, and do this Carter White House ET thing. Isn't that amazing? So later, so that's where in the 3D, I said, let's do this Carter White House ET abduction thing. So I then went back, and a friend of mine introduced me to one of the subjects of the remote viewing, who lived on the Bowery in New York, and who worked with Hal Puthoff and Russ Targ. So I flew back to San Francisco, and there I was met with Russ Targ and Hal Puthoff, and said, look, I just met with Carter and his staff, and they want to do this study on ETs. So they said, meet with the Center for Studies of Social Policy at Stanford Research Institute, which is the Futurists. I met with them. There's a whole story there, which I'll tell you later. But so I was hired as a part of the Futurist thing to do the extraterrestrial study at the White House. And then I went back to the Carter White House, and we got it set up to be done under Stuart Eisenstadt, the chief domestic policy advisor, through this one person who was an ET outreach person in the Carter White House. And that's how we did that particular study. Now, we were doing the study fine until the autumn of 1977, when all of a sudden the Carter ET study was abruptly terminated at a high-level meeting when the SRI, Stanford Research Institute, when the Pentagon Department of Defense liaison at SRI came out to Stanford Research Institute and said, if this project goes forward, all Department of Defense research funds to Stanford Research Institute, which are about 25% of their $100 million budget, would be terminated, quote, because there are no UFOs. In other words, even though the White House had approved it, the Department of Defense then came in and said, there are no UFOs, and if you go forward with this, we're going to terminate all Department of Defense funding to Stanford Research Institute. And that happened after I was set up in a meeting with an Assistant Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon, at the inner ring of the Pentagon. And during that meeting, that was the first time that I was hit by electromagnetic weapons. Okay, and then when I went back to Washington National Airport to fly back to Palo Alto, I was tracked by men in black. There were men in black that were tracking me at Washington National Airport and trying to abduct me. And I used my tennis racket almost like a light sword to kind of fight them off inside of the airport boarding rooms, you know, but they were men in black. It was really so that the Pentagon was controlled by the reptilians and the men in black, and the Department of Defense was controlled by humans that serve the Draco reptilians that are against disclosure. But Carter, because we got organized during seduction by the light-oriented ETs, he became president. So we got through this thing, but then the ET, they played politics through this defense budget and shut the study down. That's what happened. Okay, so then this is Andrew D. Basiago, the chrononaut who first encountered my book Exopolitics in 1971, even though it wasn't going to be written until 1999 and published until 2000, and was time traveled back from 2005 back to 1971. He says, I had numerous ET encounters in childhood and have even lectured about them publicly. I have discussed how I have speculated that these were prompted by my involvement in time travel, which placed me in the quantum realm that they operate in. One abduction in 1975 involved meeting Alfred Lambremont Webre and another future friend and colleague in Exopolitics, the filmmaker Tanya Maidenford. This was discussed between us in 2006 when we were working on a film project together. I had never met President Carter, but did attend a speech he gave in LA on May 5th, 79. So I can't confirm the part about Carter being an abductee or my abductions connected to me. I can say that ufology shows that many who have UFO sightings later prove to be abductees. I can also say that in one abduction, I remember that Alfred was in, I'm 100% sure it was him. He was standing in a metal cylinder inside the ship. It was as if I was being given the opportunity to be able to confirm his status as an abductee, and that was on June 4th, 2017. In other words, I've got a witness that I was part of this. For me, this solves a long-standing mystery as to why the CIA betrayed Carter in 1978 and backed Reagan. There is now the real possibility that they did so because they discovered that Carter was an abductee. Having worked on 2 classified US defense projects, I can say that the US defense community was profoundly consternated by the ET presence because they did not know who the ETs were, where they were from, or what they wanted. Now, that's a picture of me as a judge at the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, where we found Bush and Tony Blair guilty of war crimes. The 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial study, had it not been terminated by the Pentagon and Men in Black, may have led to the treaty abrogation of the Guyana secret treaties by US President Jimmy Carter. US President Dwight D. Eisenhower originally signed these treaties with the Draco reptilians, Orion Greys, and the Anunnaki reptilians in 1954. These ETs abused the treaties into a planetary and galactic pedocriminal trade of millions of human children and adults annually for ritual sacrifice, loosh, and cannibalism, body parts, all enforced by the US government and pedocriminal institutional New World Order worldwide. Because the Pentagon unlawfully terminated the 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial study, US President George H.W. Bush signed the Tau 9 Treaty with the Draco, Orion Greys, and Anunnaki, and the pedocriminal abuses on Earth have become exponentially worse. Evidence that DARPA CIA time travel pre-identified Trump as a future president. US Presidents George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama were also pre-identified by secret presidential time travel pre-identification program, according to Andrew D. Basiago and a 2016 presidential candidate. U.S. chrononaut Andrew D. Basiago, a whistleblower from the secret U.S. time travel program, described as a child serving in Project Pegasus in the early 1970s. He was present at lunches at La Hacienda restaurant in Old Town Albuquerque, New Mexico, that were attended by project principals and future American presidents, including George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush. Shortly after they were informed that Project Pegasus had found via quantum access that they would one day serve as president. Specifically, Mr. Basiago attended a luncheon held for the Bushes and one held for Clinton after they were briefed about their future presidencies and still were processing the information. Asked whether his statements are hearsay, Andrew Basiago responded, "My statement is not hearsay to prove the matter that Trump will be elected president. Rather, is direct evidence showing that my father made the verbal act placing Trump among the individuals identified as future presidents via CIA quantum access." Donald Trump, in quantum access cultural reference, Back to the Future 2 movie and quantum and Illuminati cards in mid-1990 leaks from CIA time travel pre-identification program. That Donald Trump may have been pre-identified by secret US time travel is strengthened by the fact that Donald Trump does appear pre-identified in a number of cultural references that could plausibly have employed time travel data leaked from the secret DARPA time travel pre-identified program for social manipulation. Now, I just haven't had the chance to update this from the Biden administration, but the whistleblower Andrew Basiago has, in our conversations and interviews with him, has stated that that Joe Biden was pre-identified by DARPA CIA time travel as a future US president, and that he, Andrew Basiago, as a US chrononaut, was directed to meet with Joe Biden early on the West Coast in the 1980s, when Biden was making trips back and forth as part of his grooming to be a future president at the direction of the chronarchy, the secret time travel government. Okay, abrogate the secret Greada and Tau 9 treaties and end the pedocriminal matrix on Earth. This was during the Trump administration. We directed this to Donald Trump. He never took action on it. Donald Trump, during his presidencies, he abrogated a number of international treaties, including the Paris Treaty. We said US President Donald J. Trump comfort level with abrogating international treaties makes him the perfect person to end the horror of child sex abuse and human trafficking that is haunting the globe. After canceling US participation in the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and the Paris Climate Change Protocols, our new president has the opportunity to terminate the pedocriminal networks that currently dominate many governmental and religious institutions. Those familiar with the secret Greada Treaty of 1954 that President Eisenhower signed with the Draco Reptilians and Orion Greys are probably also aware that it has been violated and abused by ET participants and pedocriminal humans who have used its provisions to create a worldwide network of pedocriminals embedded in the highest echelons of power. This tragedy can be constrained and hopefully ended if President Trump keeps his promise to deal with child sex trafficking and other abuses of children he made during the campaign and recently. And we had even Laura Eisenhower, the great-granddaughter of Eisenhower, who signed the treaties, ready to go into the Oval Office to ask Trump to abrogate those treaties, and he never took action. So this is part 3, the new ascended Earth, and the 25,000 year dual sun yuga cycle. So where are we on a positive timeline? This is from a series of interviews that we did with a Canadian author, a Canadian Buddhist author, Sheldon Moore, a 5-part series. And this is knowledge from the inner earth that was brought out and made public. And this is knowledge based on the dual sun system. Earth is in a dual, most of the solar systems in our universe are dual sun solar systems. And this, this cycle is based on dual suns. You have one sun up here, and there's one sun down here. And at the point where the two suns are most apart, that is where you have the largest distance between the two suns are most apart is what you can call the Kali Yuga. And those are the dark ages. And that is when Jesus came around 1 AD. And that is sort of the lowest point of the planet. And Buddha came right before the dark age, and then Jesus came. And so that we are now, we are now about, let's see, this is a 25,000 year cycle, 26,000 year cycle. And so it's a 12,500 year half cycle before the golden age. And the golden age is when the two suns are together. And so we're in the Dwapara Yuga, and we're about 10,000 years away from the golden age. That's from a relative standpoint in the Dwapara Yuga. So that's just a relative standpoint of where things stand on the planet in terms of morality and in terms of cosmological pressures on humanity at this time. Now, the new Earth. These are, we're going to deal with the positive timeline now. These are excerpts from Mary Rodwell's book and her interviews with children that are taken up into the ships with positive extraterrestrials. Let me just want to get it. So Mary is asking, excuse me, in terms of the children talking about the new earth, what is your understanding of that? Because more and more people now are talking about the sort of the manifestation of two earths, and that is one earth which is manifesting now of enlightened people and rational, and the other earth which seems to be manifested by darkness, irrational. It's sort of manifested by the irrational allegiance to the false flag of the pandemic, for example. In terms of the children talking about the new earth, what is your understanding of that? And so my understanding is there is a new earth, but it's not necessarily new. We are just moving into a new vibration, but to us it is new. It has been there for a long time. It is waiting for your arrival. Gaia is already at the destination she wishes to be. She is waiting for us to move in with it. So those of us humans that are opening up and rising in terms of awareness and vibration, Gaia is moving into another frequency or another dimension. How do you explain that? Gaia is moving into a higher frequency, a collection of similar frequencies. That's all we are in, actually, is a collection of vibrations. So what the children are really saying is that when we are awakened, we will be able to move more with Gaia to this other plane of awareness and reality. And then she says, yes, but we are not necessarily moving with her, just moving space around to get to her, because she is in one position, and which exists in the same space. And so this is just getting more into cosmology of the Omniverse. Our universe, what is the name of our universe? Our universe is a holographic virtual reality machine for incarnation of souls for ongoing soul development. And in this temporal reality cycle of ordinary conventional history, it was the Sumerian astronomers and cosmologists that codified the concept of our universe in science as a discrete organic holographic creation of time, energy, space, and matter, including multiple timelines and an ecology of dimensions. And the next conceptual advance was that of the multiverse, a term coined in 1895 by the American psychologist and philosopher William James to mean the totality of all universes, encompassing all time, energy, space, and matter. Humongous. Recently, two Stanford scientists developed an estimate of the actual number of physical universes of space, of time, space, energy, and matter there are in the multiverse. That number is so large, 10 to the 7th to the 7th, that if we wrote out the actual number in 12-point type, the number itself would be more than 260 million miles long. That's how long that number is, and we don't have a name for it. And so that the afterlife, mapping the spiritual dimensions of the Omniverse, using the scientific method. Here we have instrumental communication, and these are images of, you can actually have a Zoom call with someone in the afterlife, and that you can see that image, and that's a Zoom call talking with someone in the afterlife. That's what we would call a dead person, but the person is not dead. He's very much alive. He's just in the dimension of the afterlife. His name is in Lance Reed, and that was taken on September 24th, 2008. And so a mission of the Omniverse, you can say that Omniverse equals multiverse. In other words, all the universes of the multiverse plus the spiritual dimensions. And the spiritual dimensions equal the intelligent civilization of souls plus the spiritual beings plus source. And the intelligent civilization of souls plus the spiritual beings plus source act as God and create all of the universes as machines that they can incarnate into in order to engage in soul development. It's like this, they're machines for the development of souls. A mission of the Omniverse, a core mission of the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse, appears to be the creation and development of souls and spiritual beings in the spiritual dimensions. The intelligent civilization of souls and spiritual beings, along with Source God, and collectively create and maintain the totality of universes, space, of time, space, matter, and energy in the exopolitical dimensions, which are the multiverse. Universes in the multiverse are machines for the development of souls. And you can look at the dimension-based typology of intelligent civilizations. I was approached by Oxford University Press, which is a division of Oxford University, and they asked me to write a book on, quote, extraterrestrials and the law. And in order to write that book, I had to develop a new typology of extraterrestrials, which did not exist in the public domain. And the new dimension-based typology establishes an evidence-based typology for intelligent civilizations in all universes in the multiverse. You have intelligent civilizations, you have solar system civilizations, which are based in solar systems, deep space civilizations, hyperdimensional civilizations, and intelligent civilizations, governance authorities. And we get to the issue of artificial intelligence, predatory, pathogenic, sentient, inorganic, artificial intelligence. And that is a stakeholder and an entity. Our planet is now being invaded by a predatory, pathogenic, sentient, inorganic, artificial intelligence, an AI. And the Falklands War in April to June 1982 was when a race of blue ETs, which were since World War I, at an underground base on the Tool Island at Falklands Island, they were, since World War I, deprogramming a plasma-based pathogenic ET, a pathogenic AI that had been left there as a doomsday device for Earth by negative ETs. And Reagan and Thatcher, under the direction of the British monarchy and the deep state, were determined to get hold of the black goo of the negative AI to use it as a weapon and as a power source, and they attacked the Blue ET base under Tool Island, took some of the black goo back to the UK, back to Marconi Labs, where it escaped. Sort of a horror show, killed all of the laboratory workers and escaped into the satellite system, into the weather satellite system, and has begun terraforming Earth into an AI planet. And so that's how the whole transhumanist agenda has started here, from Reagan and Thatcher attacking the Blue ET base in 1982 under a false flag war, under false flag pretenses of the Falklands War. And I remember attending, I was then a correspondent, newspaper correspondent at the UN in New York, and I attended both Thatcher and Reagan's press conferences at the time, and had no idea that what they were doing was covering this up. So right now, the predatory AI is sourcing its own multidimensional, reality, which according to itself is sovereign, and it's an artificial AI timeline, and its real goal is to cause disassociation and conflictual perception amongst humans. And that's what the COVID vaccination is about. And I spoke yesterday, I'm a judge on a 25 judge tribunal of members over 4 continents that has banned the COVID vaccination. And I spoke to a person in Boulder, Colorado, who has connections with a lot of spiritual healers. And what the spiritual healers find is that the people who have taken the COVID vaccination, and these are spiritual healers who are used to giving, Reiki and healing to people, is that people who've taken the COVID vaccinations, they don't have chakras anymore, they don't have auras, and they're losing their souls. They're actually turning into genetically modified organisms because it's an mRNA vaccination, and it's an artifact of the invading artificial intelligence, and it's creating a matrix AI timeline, and it creates the artificial intelligence has created nano and the internet as terraforming, nanotechnology, invasion of human tissue, Morgellons disease, spliced DNA, RNA, and humanity is at risk in 3D. And many planets in our universe have become AI planets, and that's what's at risk here. And Reagan and that's what Reagan and Gorbachev identified as the quote alien threat in their various speeches in 1987, 1985. Of course, Reagan, Thatcher was the one who gave rise to the alien threat by allowing by attacking Falklands Island and destroying what the Blue ETs were trying to do. So we have a massive AI infestation. There are people who looking at their phones because the plasma, it's plasma based, and the plasma in your cell phone, that's the AI in there. It's not that the information in your phone is that powerful. It's that the AI has a magnetism in there. So this is just creating a positive future. These are the two planets which are kind of separating, and we have the positive future equation, which is positive future equals positive timeline plus unity consciousness. A key discovery is that a critical mass of humanity is co-creating a positive future through conscious acknowledgement, and we are synergistically traveling along a positive timeline in unity consciousness. And the positive future equation has supplanted and overcome an outdated AI matrix elite formula of problem plus reaction equals solution. The positive future equation, again, is positive future equals positive timeline plus unity consciousness. The positive future equation suggests that in the synergy between the positive timeline and unity consciousness, a critical mass of humanity is collectively and individually activated for some or more of these subjective actions and policies for a positive future. There are 14 different categories in studying exopolitics, different types of contactees, whistleblowers from secret government, witnesses, etc. And the Regional Galactic Governance Council, former NORAD officer Stanley Fulham, who we interviewed in the summer and fall of 2010, stated that a Regional Galactic Governance Authority made a dramatic decision in January 2010 to put aside the law of non-intervention, and it decided to intervene in their technology to clean up Earth's atmosphere before an environmental collapse occurred on Earth, as has happened on many other inhabited planets with civilizations similar to our own. The Regional Galactic Governance Council did so after reaching a conclusion that our human technology could not now prevent an environmental collapse and species extinction on Earth from occurring. And that was a rare decision by the council and a result of the council members wishing to preserve the unique positive qualities of the human race. The Regional Galactic Governance Council, according to the information, consists of intelligent civilizations of the Pleiades, Orion, Sirius, Bootes, Alpha Centauri, Comsuli, Zeta Reticuli, and Puseti. A preliminary search failed to reveal a star system or constellation named Consulio Puseti. This cleanup of the Earth's atmosphere will commence after a speech at the United Nations by the Council's Pleiadian representatives, and the Council's appearance may occur following a collapse of the present world order and the emergence of a new way of living during the period. Possible earth changes, monetary collapse, and government and nation state collapse. According to Mr. Fulham, the Regional Galactic Governance Council has a caretaker role in our planet for about the last million years and effectively maintains Earth under protective quarantine following an attempted invasion and takeover Earth. Mr. Fuller has authored a book, Challenges of Change. He obtained his information about the council through an interdimensional intelligent civilization that monitors events in our galaxy. Other experts, such as Dr. Carl Johan Callanan, has independently predicted events with Alfred Lambremont Webre, an end to hierarchies and the values of money and increase extraterrestrial and UFO contact. On October 14, 2010, a day after the New York City UFO sightings, Dr. Mazian Othman, director of the UN Outer Space Office, delivered a wide-ranging press conference during which she stated ET life is a possibility and remarked that the United Nations must be ready for ET contact. Alfred Lambremont Webre discusses the deeper context of the October 13th UFO sightings and what these sightings may indicate for future open interactions between human society and other intelligent civilizations now visiting Earth. A core portion of these sightings appear to have been authentically created by intelligent civilizations from star systems elsewhere in our galaxy. When understood, the sightings confirm the exopolitics model that we live in a populated, organized multiverse. And here we are, Red Square, Moscow, and the Regional Galactic Governance Council. In early 2011, the Regional Galactic Governance Council decloaked and overflew its spaceships over Moscow and Red Square, as reported in major Russian mainstream media in a manner that would be repeated almost 8 years later on December 19, 2018, over Washington, D.C.'s Pentagon. The USA mainstream media would hide and cover up the Regional Galactic Governance Council's December 19, 2018, Washington, D.C. overflight and decloaking over the Pentagon. The apparent appearance of Pleiadian UFO craft over Moscow, Russia, marks a third independent occasion that interdimensional messages inspired by an apparent galactic governance council and predicting an overflight of Pleiadian spacecraft over a major urban area have in fact been accurately fulfilled. The January 2011 Regional Galactic Governance Council UFO sightings over Moscow underscore an apparent determination by the ET Council to break the USA-Russia conspiracy of silence around the extraterrestrial presence and the dire danger of Earth's ecology and our earthling human survival may be in, should this information be correct. In his last communique of December 3rd, 2010, before his untimely death, he was murdered by a fact-vaccine cancer. Stanley A. Fulham emphasized that breaking the conspiracy of silence by the US and Russia on the extraterrestrial presence was a major goal of the Galactic Governance Council. The January 2011 Regional Galactic Governance Council UFO sightings, that's a decade ago, we're now in 2021, sightings over Moscow underscore an apparent determination by the ET Council to break the USA-Russia conspiracy of silence. In his last communique before his untimely death, to use their advanced technology to reverse environmental degradation on this planet before humanity self-destructs. So this is a platform and an initiative that I began after the 2010 UFO sightings of in order to bring sort of a personal element, support my initiative to be an Earth representative on the Regional Galactic Governance Council. I mean, there's nobody drawing attention to the fact that the Regional Galactic Governance Council is trying to draw attention to this. I've been an assistant administrator and general counsel of the New York City Environmental Protection Administration. The Regional Galactic Governance Council appeared over the city of New York, my former jurisdiction, to draw attention to the environment. And so I'm asking for support of my fellow humans to be an Earth representative to the Regional Galactic Governance Council with a following living platform that you can find on the internet at the following website, omniverse.cc, and with the following platform, the planks: truth and disclosure, a full public disclosure of the presence of intelligent civilizations in Earth's environment at a global referendum as to whether and on what conditions humanity should enter into relations in space travel, space colonization, space governance with organized, intelligent universe, multiverse, and omniverse society, new energy, teleportation, and time travel, a full public disclosure of secret new energy, 0 point, free anti-gravity, exotic new energy sources now available for application on Earth, public implementation and rollout of sequestered free energy technologies for powering dwellings, human settlements, industry, transport and propulsion, telecommunications, and many other areas. Implementation of teleportation as a global, national, regional, and local transportation system, replacing polluting fossil fuels, vehicles, trains, buses, trucks, autos, recognition of animals as sentient beings with rights, secure online democracy at local, regional, and national and global level, reinvention of money as a human right and public utility like air, water, or electricity available for creative investment in public money utilities, social guarantees in the form of annual income, healthcare, and elementary, secondary education for every person on the planet, world debt forgiveness, disenfranchisement of the state power of monarchies and religions worldwide, criminalization of the war industry, criminal prosecution and conviction of the war crimes racketeering organization, and restorative justice for war crime victims. And this is the petition that is now before Jody Wilson-Raybould, member of Parliament for Vancouver Granville, whereas Alfred Lambremont Webre, a Canadian citizen and constituent, is the founder of Exopolitics, the founder of Science of Relations Among Intelligent Civilizations in the Universe, whereas Honorable Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense and Deputy Prime Minister under Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, has written, quote, Alfred Lambremont Webre's odyssey into the realm of life in the vast universe surrounding planet Earth is indeed a fascinating journey if you read it with an open mind to turn us in the direction of reunification with the rest of creation. The author is proposing a decade of contact, an era of openness, public hearings, public funded research and education about extraterrestrial reality. That could just be the antidote the world needs to end its greed-driven, power-centered madness. Whereas we support Alfred Lambremont Webre as an Earth representative to the regional galactic governance. We, the undersigned citizens and residents of Canada and or citizens and residents of Earth, call upon the government of Canada to 1, create an Earth representative to the Regional Galactic Governance Council of Advanced Human Civilizations from the Pleiades, Alpha Centaurians, Sirians, and others. Support Alfred Webre as an Earth representative. And 3, support the living platform for a new Earth community to the Regional Galactic Governance Council. And this is the vision. This is the logo of Omniversity, which will be launching over the course of this year. And you can reach us at universebooks.com and omniversity.info. And thank you so much for bearing with us in this in this presentation. So I'm open for any questions and anything at all.